This show is brought to you by Safety FM.
And from the border of liberty and prosperity in the highlands of North, this is Safety Wars for Monday, October 14, 2024. How's everybody doing out there after that glorious weekend in the Northeast? I know some of you folks went through some real hard times there, especially out there in the hurricane-impacted areas, which we're talking about. I tell you what, watching the Met game right before airtime, what can I say? It's the Mets. Anything can happen. What was the final score? 7-2, something like that? No. Edwin Diaz gets the job done. Right? He does get the job done. But you're like, is he going to do it or not? Oh, I don't know. No, he has you sweating it out. But it's the Mets. Anything can happen. So our programming may not happen in a couple of days, but they do really well in this series. 7 versus the Dodgers. I'm a little bit torn here because my mother's favorite team was the Dodgers because it was my father's favorite team when they were in Brooklyn. And he was heartbroken when they went to Brooklyn. And Brooklyn still has some of the old Dodgers, I don't know what to call them, memories. They have Evans Field, I think that was out there marked where it was, home plate in a parking lot. They named streets after some Brooklyn Dodgers, Erskine Street being one of them. So we're all, and the other thing was my dear friend of the program, Nora, had her father. His name was Walter, also like my father, and she has when cleaning out this thing, she found a book from autograph by Duke Snider, who was playing for the Brooklyn Dodgers. And for whatever reason, hold on, we're going to have to restart this right here. We're getting a real bad internet connection. Let me do this. Hold on. I'll be back in a minute.
SafetyFM.com with Jay Allen. Changing safety cultures, one broadcast and one podcast at a time.
Okay, I think we're on the air clear. You can hear me clearly now. I don't know what happened there. Every couple of days, we get a real bad signal. So, no, we're talking about the Mets, and the Brooklyn Dodgers. But my father was heartbroken that the Brooklyn Dodgers left. So, Brooklyn, because that's where one of the places he grew up in elementary school, that age, was in Brooklyn, and went to Brooklyn Dodgers games and everything else. And when they left, right now, heartbroken. They still have a lot of landmarks there. So anyway, my friend Nora has her father's name was Walter also. So they're cleaning out their stuff. They find a book, Duke Snider's autobiography, with the help of Erskine. I forget his first name. Dodgers played for the Dodgers. They, it was co-written, co-authored, edited, something like that with Erskine. But anyway. It was autographed by Duke Snider, who was my father's favorite player. And I got that. I gave it to him for his birthday one year. So anyway, my mother was always, they were Mets fans, they were Yankees fans, and they were also Dodgers fans. I mean, in their retiring years, I'm sorry for giving all of this personal stuff, but their retiring years from the mid-'90s until they passed away. I mean, baseball was always on during baseball season. I mean, we had whatever was on. Uh, Obviously favoring New York teams first, and then the Dodgers and Atlanta with that. So it was a good blend there. Now, I had already moved out of the house by then. But the other thing my mother liked was action adventure movies. When you go over that house and she's, watching action adventure movies, Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jean Claude Van Damme, all of those. So, interesting, interesting. Now, I'm going to get right off here and say, I know I've been called a conspiracy theorist. I shouldn't be talking about population control and things of that nature. And people get very PO'd and very turned off by this. But this came across my desk today. I guess the former president of the United States is also a conspiracy theorist. He's also, he must be an extreme right winger here. He must be unreasonable. Because guess what I found here? It came across one of the news feeds where former President Bill Clinton is campaigning for Kamala Harris down in Georgia. And Bill Clinton had, in 1994, in alignment with a UN policy, had endorsed family planning and everything else. Regardless of what your opinion is on it, it's totally and completely irrelevant. However, the fact is, there's big things and researching what I'm about to hear, and what you're about to hear, and everything. No, I came across information that I had forgotten about. What do I know? It was 30 years ago. But anyway, here we're going to listen to this. Hopefully, if this doesn't come across, I am going to read you the quote. So this should work right here. All right. So now it's like a 10-minute, 37-second clip. This clip that we played was roughly, about 2 minutes? And I tried to put things into context. The bill he's talking about, the former President Trump had some reasons for not supporting it, namely that it's still allowed in illegal immigrants at a certain level, or immigrants and basically illegal or whatever at a certain level. And that was a disagreement. And some of the other stuff I'm going to let you decide for yourself and do the research for yourself on here. I'm not endorsing one candidate over the other. I'm just putting it out there. But we talk about demographics. When I was on the Jay Allen show, I believe it was in September, we had discussed demographics and how demographics work. And basically, you have to have the correct numbers of people in the right areas for society to run smoothly, right? And we start to get out of whack with the age ranges. For example, World War II, big impact on the uh, uh, Western Europe, especially Eastern Europe, big demographic hole because of everybody dying in the war. Now that disrupted, they had to have immigrants coming in with some to fill the thing. Now to fill the ranks, and now we have things have gotten worse. And you can just check out all of the demographic tables out there and everything with the population pyramids. So, what's my point here? We covered it for about the last 3 or 4 months. I've been talking about it, and I've known about this stuff going back for years. I haven't spoken about it. Now this is becoming mainstream. So this program, right, is about tomorrow's news today. What's happening tomorrow, today, with this? Do I agree, disagree? Am I endorsing? No, 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 not on the air. However, you can read it between the lines if you want to. Either way, but uh, again, we have demographic issues in the country, and those are what's propping up our economy right now are immigration, illegal, legal, what have you. with this, and this is going to be continuing trend. So the Democrats are going to want immigrants for votes. I mean, they're automatic votes. The Republicans are going to want immigrants for a cheap workforce, generally speaking. This is all generalities I'm speaking with. And both of them want it because it props up the economy. So, what do I see happening with this issue? It ain't going nowhere anytime soon, regardless of who wins on the first Tuesday in November this year. My question is this, and this is what my fear is, my absolute fear. What's going to happen the Wednesday after the election? All right. What's going to happen the Wednesday after the election? With this Wednesday, November 6th, or maybe around 10:30 to midnight on Tuesday, November 5th. We talked about all month of September about disaster preparation. We're going to talk about disaster preparation now, disaster response now. What's going to happen with this is my question. Are we going to have further issues here with the with what happened in 2020 with all different riots, and in 2021 with the January 6th incident? Are we going to have that? Because right now, not too many people have been held accountable for the 2020 riots that went throughout the country. And we had huge areas, a couple of sections of some cities taken over. We had all these riots and everything else. What's going to happen? What are you doing to prepare? What are you doing to diffuse the situation and prevent the situation from happening? And I'm going to say this, and we've had this issue earlier this year that I've brought out. And that's along the lines of, you have a professional protester and riot squad in this country on both sides. Right? If they're going to go and you're going to talk you into doing something, and again, this is starting this week because I've already heard murmurings in the podcast and blogosphere and everything. You get roped into this. The organizers do not, repeat, the organizers do not get held accountable. But the average schlub like you and I, we get held accountable for this. Now, that's all part of the safety war. You got people out there, whether it's workplace safety or environmental, why don't you take the hit for this? Well, I'm going to sit back here and I'm going to watch. I'm going to instigate this so you could go and do X, Y, and Z. Oh, and by the way, make a donation to me. I need a new Mercedes and a new $1,500 silk suit. I don't have a silk suit, so I just throw that number out there. I need a new maybe when I was in college, $1,500. Now it's probably $3,000 silk suit. I need a Tesla. Come on, send me money. You go out there and protest. Yeah, good job. We're gonna clap. Yeah, good job. All right. While and you rot in prison while we're living La Vida Loco. I just got off the phone a couple hours before airtime with a charity out there. I know somebody near and dear to me works for a charity, politically oriented. I said, since this happened, X, Y, and Z happened, how's donations to charity going? Jimmy, pretty darn good. I said, okay, just proves my point with this whole thing. Is to keep the money flowing in and get everything else. I'm on a rant today. I'm all over the place. I get it. So what's the moral of the story here? What we have been talking about for months about population control and demographics is now mainstream. Former President Bill Clinton, not a right-winger, lives right over in Chappaqua, about 13 miles east of me, right here. We're almost parallel, actually, if you look on a map. All right. Used to live on the same, off the same street he did, and when I lived in White Plains when we first got married. So he's a local. Is my point. All in there. All right. I think I beat a dead horse here. That's what my opening comments are. Is we have been ahead of the news on here, and Safety FM has been ahead of the news. Right, starting with the fake COVID vaccination cards that me and Jay Allen were the first to report on. Number one. Number two was with the whole demographic issue, and that has to be addressed with the immigration and everything. They're not going to solve the problem because both political parties are vested in this. Now that we know that we're both vested in having immigrants in here, legal and illegal, what are we going to do about it? And we are being played by everything. Number three, what are you going to do the day after the election on Wednesday, November 6th? Everybody calm down. Don't get involved in riots or huge protests because those folks that are organizing it, those things, are doing it to make money off of you and to keep the friggin' cash flow going. It's the way it is. That's my viewpoint there. And I'm sticking to it because I've been doing this since I'm 19 years old here. All right? Been fully awake since spring of 2022. Thank you, Alice Gitchell. Was one of my professors. Today's her husband's birthday. He passed away a couple years ago. Jamie Cromartie, rest in peace. He was the head of the American Entomological Society for a couple of years. Right? So all of this is I'm name dropping again. I know I gotta avoid it. But anyway, all this is going on here. What are you gonna do? I say everybody calm down, relax. Thank the Lord that Wednesday, November 6th is coming. And then we'll figure out what we're going to do after that. We're going to figure out what we're going to do about the safety war and what we're going to do about our lives because everybody's waiting for this to happen, regardless of what side you're on. Because like we're all in a quickening phase here. We'll use a fancy word. All right, we're going to go to our first commercial break. I'm going to set up the rest of the program here.
From the front lines of the safety war, it's Safety Wars with your host, Jim Posel on Safety FM. Get ready to face the harsh reality.
And for a little bit of humor here, too.
This is going to blow your mind. There's a new daytime talk show on your local cable access station. What happens when safety, scandal, and heartbreak collide? Welcome to Safety Wars, the talk show. Today's episode is a doozy. Imagine confronting your unsafe supervisor who just happens to be your ex-wife's new hubby. Talk about a powder keg. But wait, there's more. We've got an exclusive interview with a corporate exec who's taken out life insurance policies on his riskiest workers, hoping to cash in on a deadly mishap. Yup, you heard that right. It's a real-life plot twist you can't make up. Tune in as Jim Posel, CSP, our very own Jerry Springer of Safety, dives deep into this explosive confrontation. Sparks will fly and secrets will be exposed. Catch the full episode on Safety Wars on YouTube and your favorite podcast platform. Don't miss out on the drama that could save your life. Like and share now, and stay safe, folks.
In the professional safety community, communication and planning are just a few keys to your program's success. The question many practitioners have is, where do I start? Dr. Jay Allen, the creator of the Safety FM platform and host of the Rated R Safety Show, has built a global foundation to help you along the way. Go to safetyfm.com and listen to some of the industry's best and most involved professionals, including Blaine Hoffman with the Safety Pro, Sam Goodman with the Hop Nerd, Sheldon Primus with the Safety Consultant, Jim Posel with Safety Wars. Emily Elrod with Unapologetically Bold, and many others. As individuals, we can do great things, but as a team, we become amazing. Dial into safetyfm.com today and surround yourself with a powerful force of knowledge and support.
OSHA recordables, catastrophic losses, environmental disasters. You want answers? So do I. This is Jim Posel with Safety Wars.
That's my daddy!
You are listening to Safety Wars. Tomorrow's Safety Today.
All right. So I got a email here. On that Bill Clinton thing, it's only coming out of one speaker. I know. I can't do anything about that. That was the source material. Seems to be that speech, nobody wants you to hear it. I don't know why. It says a lot of stuff in support of Kamala Harris, but I can see the Trump administration, the Trump campaign, going and just taking that little snippet out and playing and running with it. This is why you got to be careful on what you say. And I'll say this much: with friends like Bill Clinton, enemies. All right. Emergency. Let me do. We wanted to talk about PPE today for emergency response. This is one that goes out to you people in the hurricane zone, North Carolina, on down. Right. So here we have. This is from the OSHA.gov, and no, I could come up with my own stuff on this, but I want to hear what the government has to say on this, and we're going to add and detract as we need to. Here, this is how I stay out of trouble because right with this. So, this is from OSHA.gov /emergency dash preparedness /getting dash started #V dash NAV dash PPEEMER. So, in case you're wondering, emergency preparedness and response getting started. PPE for emergency response and recovery workers. So we are used to the I almost said population. From NIOSH, the pyramid, right, and at the top of the pyramid, right, for it says elimination. Hold on. Pyramid of controls, right, from NIOSH, right? So we're all familiar with it. Let me do this with this. Hold on. Okay, share screen. Hierarchy of controls. Here. So here we have the elimination of hold on. Pyramid of controls. So here at the top, we have the hierarchy of controls. So we have elimination, substitution, engineering controls, administrative controls, and PPE. The least desired method of any type of hazard control here is PPE, right? Protect the worker with personal protective equipment. That is the least this is the least preferable thing. Why? Because why is it least effective? Is that you need to you're relying on the worker to do the right thing. And as we know, workers don't always do the right things for a whole host of reasons, a whole host of incentives. It's not because they're stupid or they're evil or anything like that. All right. And that's what I hear. No, there are incentives not to do that. When a worker is not wearing PPE, it's usually uncomfortable. I heard that today. It might be the worker feels it's inappropriate, and it might be inappropriate. It may not be the right size. Abby Ferry talked about this a lot when she used to have her podcast and her videocast, but on her LinkedIn page, she still has this. So, for example, a woman may not have the cut of the materials for PPE, and the sizes may not be appropriate. So that's good, that with that. So again, you're relying on the worker. Administrative controls, what's an administrative control or rules? What's the rule? You guys go and you do X, Y, and Z. Guess what? That rule may not be followed. Engineering control, right? Isolate the people from the hazard. We may be talking about ventilation and things of that nature, and then substitution, replace the hazard, replace a dangerous thing with a less dangerous thing, and then an elimination is that. And there's overlap here. So you can have like a cut-resistant glove where you're not going to have a laceration, but you're going to have a scratch. Right? That could be a good thing with the substitution here with that. So all that stuff goes into that hierarchy of controls. The problem here is this. When you're in a disaster scenario, you're not going to have the opportunity. And I spoke to a friend of the show, who is a now retired fire chief from a town that you've all heard of. All right, down in the Carolinas. But anyway, you've all heard of him. Been a lifelong friend. We went over this because he wanted a different approach with this thing, the hierarchy of control. So we discussed it. I said, you're an emergency responder. You're not in a factory. You're not in a construction site where you're going to be able to control the hazards. Can't do it. You can't do it on a construction site all the time. Could try maritime, general industry. You got a little bit more control. You're not going to be able to control everything. So you're going into a situation and you have to rely on your PPE, your personal protective equipment, or administrative controls. You're down at the bottom of this here triangle or pyramid. You're down at the bottom. And that's why it's extremely important that you have personal protective equipment on with this. It's always important, to have the correct PPE on, but it's critical in a disaster to have the correct PPE on. Because of this, you can't control your setup of the work area. So right off the bat, you got to worry about PPE. The other thing is if you're dealing with a chemical hazard, especially firefighters dealing with fires, or maybe an emergency response team dealing with those sorts of emergency with chemicals and things, you have to go and you have to be prepared. You have to be in supplied air because you don't know what you're going to be in. Or as we call in the hazmat world, level PPE. The turnout gear for a firefighter, right? That would be right. That would be level B, right? I haven't really thought about it, but probably be level B. But that's why at the hazmat world, you don't know what you're dealing with. You're automatically level A until you figure out what you're dealing with. Then it goes down from there. Now, OSHA's way here, and if you're on the video stream, you'll be seeing this. Right, I have just been recording the videos and then posting them later on. I've don't really do them live anymore for a whole host of reasons here. So here we have PPE for emergency response and recovery workers. And the following are some important steps employers with emergency response and recovery workers need to take with respect to PPE. Now, the big issue is if you are this is today, and the regulations may change, a volunteer. If you are a volunteer, a lot of organizations feel that, they don't know you anything. They don't know you any training. They don't have to follow any OSHA regulations. They don't have to follow industry standards. They don't have to follow GOVNO. That's it. And that's the problem. The other thing is this. If you're working for a volunteer organization, it could be a church, it could be another community group that sends volunteers in to help with recovery things. Guess what? You're in legal limbo. You don't know what, there's very little training that's given, right? There's very little direction given. There's very little organizations often. If you get hurt, what do you do? If you have life insurance? You're supposed to report to them when you sign up for life insurance that you do this kind of stuff, go into disaster things. And I know I went through it. With that, so who's going to pay when you get hurt? So I'm not saying don't help people. What I'm saying is you got to be smart about it. You have to say, well, no, what am I going to do not to make the problem worse? Because that's one of the first rules of emergency response. Let's not make the problem worse. So this is what they're requiring, right? The following are some of the important steps employers and with emergency response and recovery workers need to take with respect to PPE. 1. Conduct a hazard assessment to determine what safety and health hazards workers may encounter. 2. Follow the hierarchy of controls, which you just mentioned, which are you're going to have a problem doing, and I'm highlighting that, right? 3. Determine what PPE workers need. 4. Provide the proper PPE. 5. Train workers in the proper use of PPE, including how to put it on and take it off correctly, and how to clean, maintain, and dispose of it after or between uses. Ensure that PPE is used properly. That requires you as the employer or the supervisor or the person in charge of whatever to make sure people are wearing this stuff. Provide medical exams and or fit testing as required by OSHA standards prior to using certain types of PPE. The example they give are respirators. I would include intolerance for heat and claustrophobia on that. Certain medical conditions, you cannot have, you're intolerant to heat. Right? For example, high blood pressure. I always get hypertension, right? Blood pressure, heart issues, if you're on different medications, heart medications. If you have diabetes, often people with diabetes are intolerant to heat. That goes along with the territory. And there are many, many, many other factors that go into that. So figure out what you're going to do with that. All right. The next thing, train workers in proper use, right? Ensure and regularly review and update the PPE programs as hazards change. So hazards may change. You have to have an effective way of updating this stuff. Now, there's a lot of criticism in the disaster response world, right? There has been over the years. I'm not speaking about particularly one incident, but they require, before people are actually out there responding to things, they require training. A lot of that training may or may not be politically correct. So, for example, they talk about sexual harassment training. In my opinion on that, and again, society has changed. This is 2024, but I still hear stupid things about sexual harassment on the projects I'm on. One of my clients, every month, the first day of the month, everybody has to go out and do toolbox talk on sexual harassment and other things because there were issues, recent issues. Not everybody comes from the same culture we do here in the United States. Here, and even parts of the United States are different than other parts. There was stuff out in the Midwest that we could say, or deep South, we could say that if I were to say it up here, not that I would say it anywhere, but that if you're going to say it up here, guess what? There's the door, folks. So basically, that's what we're talking about is with that. Again, that's all part of it because of another issue here, which we'll talk about later on, which is post-traumatic stress. People get involved in post-traumatic stress. They're away from their spouses. They're away from their social outlets. Things happen. I can tell you on some of the disasters I'm involved with in the cleanups and in the management, guess what? People are away from their spouses. People are away from home. They're away from their boyfriends, girlfriends, what have you. Get a support network. Things happen. So, again, that training. So, what do we have? We provide with us 7.5 hour or 15-hour disaster response worker training, and you get that way ahead of time. And that's focused on that. What's some of the other focus on disasters? 40-hour HAZWOPER is the other one. That's the big one. With that, how to identify hazardous materials in your working environment. How do you avoid? How do you protect yourself? All that goes into that. When you're handing out PPE, yes, you have to train people how to use PPE. So, for example, let's say you are cleaning up an oil spill. You're on a disaster site. All that may be available are latex gloves. Latex gloves dissolve on contact with oil. Yes, they do. Again, all this has got to be planned out well ahead of time. So they ask, well, what's a good glove? This is what I tell people. Anything that gives you the maximum amount of protection. With that you are still to be dexterity with, and it's going to have some of the major hazards. I'm not going to make a specific recommendation. Why? I'm going to get sued. I'm going to get into trouble because people are, Jim, you told me this. But basically, you go into one of your department stores, a Home Depot, Lowe's. They sell chemical resistant gloves. You look on that, there is a cut sheet on there. If you're not sure, call the manufacturer. Again, planning ahead of time. Respiratory protection. Again, this is this is controversial. People feel that, I can wear any mask I want or any respirator that they want. We don't need any type of training. Guess what? This is the time to prepare and you learn about what the different types of respirators there are and what's appropriate. Chances are you can probably get away with either a half or a full face respirator with all this stuff. Air purifying respirator with the cartridges. Depending on what your role is, that may not be appropriate. You need some type of an assessment from a qualified individual, not somebody off of TikTok or Instagram. Sorry. We had enough of that during COVID to last us a lifetime. And you should see some. I mean, we're still having issues with this. I was on the phone today with somebody. They were still saying, those idiots with the masks. The masks aren't going to help. And it's like, well, if the masks are worn properly and if they are not masks, there are filtering face respirators and everything else, that's not necessarily true. And the other thing is this. You physicals with this stuff. You're saying, Jimmy, why do I need a physical for a mask? Why do I need this? April of 2021, first week, I was at a funeral for my mother-in-law. Height of COVID. Everybody's wearing a mask in that church. Somebody made the comment, well, we have a packed church, blah, 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 blah. My mother-in-law, very prominent member of the church, there wasn't a seat free in that church. Right? And, mask or no mask. And I said, if the governor wants to come down here, Governor Cuomo wants to come down here and start enforcing laws of the police, or let him come down here. I'm wearing a mask. Everyone else is wearing it. You don't want to wear it? That's on you. I'm not an enforcer here. But if they want to come down, let them come down. So this is the thing. We're coming out of the church. I'm with my wife, obviously, very upset. Unexpected death. My brother-in-law, that's his mother, very, very unexpected death. Very upset. You got me, she died in my arms, right? Me and my brother-in-law delivered first aid CPR to the situation, blah, blah, blah. Was unsuccessful. You had mourners there, right? We have all this there. This is all going. So you got this picture in your head, right? And now there were not enough men to be pallbearers. Everybody there was elderly, right? Or infirm, right? People, wheelchairs, crutches, canes, the whole thing. So we had to go to the funeral home, and they have supply pallbearers. That's why they had to come out of the church. The graveyard was next to the church in there. Real nice place. Consequently, my friend Dave, that I went to college with, a very good friend in college, we keep up a couple of times a year we talk. His ancestors are buried in that graveyard, believe it or not. So it was pretty, hey, I know who you're great. But anyway, I digress. Beautiful, placid day. Guy puts on a mask, one of the pallbearers. He's carrying the thing out of church, the casket. He ends up having some kind of a seizure, and he's not medically, again, no medical requirement. This is a little imitation paper mask, right? Buy him for a quarter or less. Has some type of a seizure or some type of he goes in respiratory distress, and he drops the coffin on the way out. But boom, what do? Do I leave my wife? She's all upset, crying. My brother-in-law's and my brother-in-law's wife, her and my mother-in-law were like this, very close together. Everybody's freaking out. What do? I don't know. Let him pick him up. So, pick her up. Proceed. Show some concern for the worker that fainted there, or whatever. This is why you have to plan ahead of time. I'm going to tell you, this guy did look like as normal as anybody's seen out there, healthy as ever, but he had a problem. And I'm going to tell you, most of the people wearing the masks out there that I see even today, I see people walking around the streets in stores. Are they medically capable of wearing the PPE? So, the Community Emergency Response Team that I'm a member of here in Rockland County, they distribute old-fashioned leather work gloves. But remember, there are other types of work gloves out there. When I am writing a health and safety plan, it's in there every time, cut-resistant gloves. Usually cut level 3 or 4 or higher, depending on what they're doing. That's what I recommend. Why? And they're marked on there, cut level 3, cut level 4. We'll go into that in a future program. That's what I recommend. I recommend a hard hat. I recommend, if you're medically able to do it, you're medically cleared to do it, have a filtering face fuse respirator N95 or higher with you, right, for dust. The other thing is this. If you're not sure what it is, don't touch it, don't go near it. Eliminating those chemical hazards. You say, Jimmy said on the air that when I see a potential chemical hazard, I should step back and assess the situation. If I don't have the education, the experience, the knowledge, and I don't mean knowledge from TikTok or Instagram, I mean actual knowledge, I don't touch it. We leave that up to somebody else. Leave it up to the experts to handle. It's really something that you need to consider here with that. So, 4 levels of PPE for emergency response workers. If you're a 40-hour HAZWOPER person, this is probably a good page to deal with. So, 4 levels. Level A, self-contained breathing apparatus, fully encapsulating suit. Level B, self-contained breathing apparatus, non-encapsulated chemical resistant suit. It's not fully encapsulated. It's, just regular Tyvek coveralls. Technically, they say chemical resistant, not necessarily chemical resistant. It has to be an appropriate suit and outerwear. Again, an assessment has to take place with this. Then you have level C, which is an air purifying respirator. Your N95 respirator is a filtering face fuse respirator, and that is level C. This comes up in disaster response work. Are we in level C or not? Yeah, you're in level C. You have an air purifying respirator on. Filtering face fuse or air purifier, right? Well, or a cartridge respirator, something. And this would also include powered air purifying respirators also. Again, it has to have a NIOSH rating, NIOSH rating. Maybe I should do the share screen on here. Yeah. Right, so level A, level B, level C, air purifying respirator. We are an audio program first, not so much video. Full face, right, blah, 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 or a half face. And then you have level D, which is what you're wearing right now, which is standard work clothing and maybe chemical resistant boots. But the idea is no respiratory protection on that and minimal skin protection. So, again, air purifying respirator. The common person, unfortunately, the common person sees an air purifying respirator as supplying oxygen. So you cannot use an air purifying respirator in an oxygen deficient atmosphere. Why? Oxygen, it does not supply oxygen to your body. And how are you able to determine supplied air oxygen deficiency or exceedance, right above 23.5 in general industry and construction and above 22% in maritime? Can you ascertain that? That is specifically with oxygen monitors, oxygen meters with that. Okay, and D consists of standard workloads, right? With that, those are all the standard PPE. Some of the other stuff here is this: personal protective equipment from the Centers for Disease Control. Okay, yes, I know we're exiting out there, and that has moved, and the CDC. All right, personal protective equipment is the main source of protection. Again, that's because you cannot control your working environment. You cannot put in those hierarchy of controls there. And many types of things. Now, this is from the Centers for Disease Control.gov. Again, we use government resources here because they are open source and are for everybody. Now, hearing protection, this goes on with everything else I discussed here. What are the safety guidelines? Right, with that. Avoid workplace hazards. These are the big ones out here. Asbestos, again, if you have an older building that's been demolished, that's it. Bloodborne pathogens, right? That's from blood, from other bodily fluids. And you assume universal precautions on that. Carbon monoxide, CO. That's a big killer on disaster sites because people put generators in their houses and in less ventilated areas. Confined spaces. Again, what do you have? Can you get into it? Is it designed for continuous human occupancy? Right? Is it hard to get into or out of? Those are the three things. And permit required has some other hazard, right, on there. Atmospheric, recognized hazards, cave-in hazards, not other than an excavation, things of that nature. Confined spaces. Falls, whether they're same level or from height. Again, if you're going to be doing, this is where you have some, some would call it gray area. I don't think it's gray area. You're doing disaster cleanups. I would probably, especially with untrained people out there, if in a true emergency, 4 foot or higher, you got to start thinking about what their thing is. Heat stress and silica. So you have all different chemical hazards that you may have out there. Now, this is the other thing. In a disaster response area here, OSHA often, and I did not check today, OSHA often goes from compliance enforcement to compliance assistance in these situations. I have not seen any paperwork on there. So don't assume that you're all into a compliance assistance situation with that. So we're going to go to commercial break here. And again, I'm getting kind of dry. And I'm going to get something to drink, and we're going to go from there.
In a world where danger lurks in every corner, one man stands as a beacon of hope. Jim Posel, a veteran safety expert with over 3 decades of experience, now bringing his knowledge to you with Safety Wars. Engaging, informative, and always relevant. That's Safety Wars. Join the safety revolution with Safety Wars, available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts and videos. In a world where danger
In an
lurks
unpredictable world, one voice rises above the chaos. Meet Jim Posel, a seasoned safety expert who's navigated through some of the most dangerous scenarios, from anthrax, explosive cleanups, disasters, and numerous environmental cleanups, and lived to tell the tale. Now he's bringing his wealth of knowledge, insights, and experiences to you through safety. From workplace hazards to the hidden dangers in your own home, Jim covers it all with his engaging storytelling. Safety Wars isn't just a podcast. It's your guide to a safer world. Join Jim Posel and become part of the Safety Wars revolution. Available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts and videos. Safety Wars. Your safety is our mission.
I'm sure you've heard the news. Safety training is evolving, and you should be too. Outdated safety training isn't just boring, it's dangerous. If your safety trainer is still preaching a warped version of behavior-based safety from 25 years ago, it's time for a change. Imagine safety training that actually addresses the hazards unique to your workplace. No more generic one-size-fits-all solutions. The Safety Wars team at safetywars.com is here to revolutionize how you approach safety, with customized training that's relevant, engaging, and effective. Contact Jim Polzel at 845-269-5772. Remember, if you're receiving this message, you are the solution to unsafe workplaces. Say goodbye to outdated safety training and hello to a safer, more productive environment. Visit safetywars.com now.
All right, so I'm going to do a share screen here. One of them is an historic document from the Department of Labor and OSHA to prove to you that what I said here and what I just said to you. Again, I don't need validity, but I say things that people don't realize or have never heard of, and the first response is, well, prove it. Well, we're going to prove it right now here. All right. So here we have, this is from January 20th, 2021, and this is a in relation to Hurricane Sally. And this is from the Atlanta area office, a press release. U.S. Department of Labor's Occupational Safety and Health Administration has resumed normal enforcement operations in the coastal counties of Alabama and westernmost portion of the Florida Panhandle following Hurricane Sally. In response to the storm, OSHA temporarily suspended program planned enforcement inspections and deployed safety and health professionals to provide compliance assistance and help identify and eliminate serious hazards in recovery operations. All right, so that's from 2021, and the date of this was November 4th, 2020. And there were some other things also here, here, you know, you're here, but anyway, again, this was, note the dates, right? This was one administration, and this was their policy in 2020, and January 20, right? That was a new administration on here. So may or may not reflect current policy. But I'm saying this is what's happened in the past, and it might happen again here with this. And again, these situations are case by case with this here. So here we have worker, and this is from the OSHA.gov Emergency Preparedness Guide. Worker protection, OSHA's role during response to catastrophic incidents. And this goes all the way through here and mentions the General Duty Clause, which we all know what that is. OSHA support functions. Again, and if a catastrophic incident were to occur in one of the 25 states and where there are state plans, in most situations, the state would have primary responsibility. OSHA would work cooperatively with the OSHA-approved state plan. Workers affected by a terrorist event may include workers who perform cleanups and recovery operations, workers returning to workplaces following contamination and cleanup, and workers in other workplaces that were not contaminated or directly involved but who may require assistance due to concerns or issues that may arise from catastrophic incidents. And again, they're pre-planning. OSHA has a role in the response, the recovery, and the reoccupancy area, and they mention all different types of resources that OSHA has here. So I hope that some of this was with that, and I know was helpful. Here's another one: OSHA exposure monitoring. OSHA deals with exposure monitoring for the workers and things of that nature. Just something that you need to know. But what my point is this: if you're going to be responding to an emergency, you plan on responding to an emergency, you got to be prepared. You have to assess, analyze, and act. What are the likely emergencies you're going to have out there? What are you going to do about it? And everything else along those lines. It's extremely important. It's an extremely important battle in the safety war. Like Sun Tzu said, right, from The Art of War, a wise general does not fight the battle until after it's won. And what do we do to win that battle? We win that battle by preparing for disasters. Right, before you go out half-cocked out down there in Florida or the other areas impacted, am I going as part of an organized group? Do they have their groove note together? Do they know what they're doing, or is it just going to be a bunch of guys out there and gals just helping and then creating the problem? We already discussed with some of the emergency responders and insurance people in the area where we've heard stories where help was turned back. Yeah, because it's called logistics and everything else that's out there with things. Are the resources going to where they're needed? And is that why they're being turned out? Like that all-important context thing. These are good people looking to respond in these disasters. Let's not assign negativity and evil intentions with this. Everyone's doing the best they can here with this. The only disappointment I will say is we've been doing this stuff for many, many years, right? With the Stafford Act has been in place for over 30 years, 40 years, something like that, 19. We should have our act together here as a nation on this stuff. And should we ignore it is very disconcerting. It's not the right approach. That's all I have for tonight here for Safety Wars. And I want to thank everybody for the continued.
The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the host and its guest and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the company. Examples of analysis discussed within this podcast are only examples. They should not be utilized in the real world as the only solution available, as they are based only on very limited and dated open source information. Assumptions made within this analysis are not reflective of the position of the company. No part of this podcast may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means, mechanical, electronic, recording, or otherwise, without prior written permission of the creator of the podcast, Jay Allen.